I go against the grain when I say is to stop looking at the numbers and start looking at the social end of this. Because at the end
Okay.
of the day, that's what we're talking about.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Win the Hour, Win the Day. And I am your host, Chris Ward. And I am lucky to tell you that we have Alan Hennessy in the house. Alan, okay. Alan is a digital marketer and he is going to talk to us today about how we could be more effective on LinkedIn. There's been a lot of conversation about LinkedIn. Lately, it really seems to be, I don't know, I think is it where the cool kids are hanging out, Alan? I don't know, but it seems to be changing the game compared to where it was 5 years ago. So, Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I'm delighted to be here. An honor to be on your podcast and on your videos, and just to be spending time with you is all good.
Well, Alan, compliments will get you absolutely everywhere. So we're off to a great start. That will get you anything. Okay, Alan, let's talk about. I know you said something I thought was quite powerful. You talked about creating your social currency. I loved how that sounded. And it does make it seem, I don't know, much more empowering than the grunge work of just trying to keep up with your social media work, right?
Mm.
So let's start there. What is it we're looking at wrong or differently or poorly when we're looking at social media? Because you come from a much more positive positioning, and we're going to talk about LinkedIn, but I know the work you do with your digital marketing, this can really transfer to any of the social platforms.
Yeah, it can, and
Okay.
that is the thing about it. And like I suppose the way I would look at a lot of social media, and I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to social media and digital marketing because I like to know what goes on in the background of it,
Mm.
not just what we post or when we post or how we interact. It's about the psychology behind it. And I think if you can understand the psychology behind social media, you're onto a very good thing, for the simple reason that if you can understand how your customers or how your followers or how whatever shape or form that comes in interacts on social media, it makes your job so much easier. So understanding and having a social currency is it's imperative to what you do, because when we start looking at social currency, we start looking at how we're interacting as a brand or as an individual with social media. And as you said, it goes across all of the different platforms.
Yeah, I think I misquoted the top at the beginning because I know we had talked a little bit about LinkedIn, but I think we'll be labeling this show something very different. It's not a LinkedIn specialty.
Mm.
Specialty. So let's pull back here. Okay, so we don't know what we don't know. Where do we start? What are the missteps that so many of us make with our social media work? Creating our currency. I got to stop calling it work. Creating our currency. What is it we
So
could be doing better?
yeah, so look, when we talk about social media currency, social currency is basically it allows the brands to drive higher customer loyalty and add social proof. And this in turn, of course, leads to sales and referrals. All right. So like that's the big caveat here. But I think at the end of the day, especially with social media and especially social currency, it's your influence online. It's how you project yourself. Because if we're just, like it's like if you look at it this way, if we're just taking all the time and we're not giving, it's not going to help. It's not going to help build our brand. It's not going to help us to invest and gain more traction online, because once a brand starts to be known and they're liked and they're trusted, they will then start to create that social currency where people will be, they will, I suppose, in a sense, they become advocates and they'll become very loyal to what you do. And sometimes they will even defend you,
Right.
you
Okay. So
know?
let me jump in here for 2 quick seconds. So one is the brand. So we say brand, sometimes you start to think about bigger brands, and we're talking to service-based entrepreneurs that have been in business at least 5 years. So we're speaking exactly to you guys, entrepreneurs, small teams. I don't love the word small business, but hello, whatever. I'm going to come up with a new word for that. So the brand is you. So let's not confuse that with a bigger brand, because sometimes we get caught on
Mm.
that and say, oh, that's not me. Then when you say, well, you can't just be taking, what is it you mean by that? Because so many of us get stuck on, oh, okay, I put this post up and I got 3 likes and 2 comments. Although I got a message one time, sidebar information here. I got a message from somebody once, and it was actually on LinkedIn, and she sent me a message, and she had said she'd been following me for like, I don't know, a year. And she highlighted all these things I'd done. And she said, and I said, oh, wow, that's fantastic. Thanks so much for chiming in and whatever. I said, cause I hadn't seen her do anything. Didn't know her at all. And I don't have a huge interaction with people on the platforms. And she said, Chris, you don't know who's following you and what impact you have. And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Cause we all go to, oh, we've been trained to go, oh, how many likes? Okay. No, I got whatever. Nobody cares about this. I got no likes. So when you talk about taking, what do you mean? And because we're all just chasing these numbers.
But we're all chasing numbers. And I think, and I go against the grain when I say is to stop looking at the numbers and start looking at the social end of this. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. And what I mean by taking is that we will push out content and hopefully it's going to stick somewhere. And instead of that, we should be interacting with people that we're following and connecting with them. And then start to have conversations, because we got to remember that social media is 2 words. It's social and it's media. And the social part is about that interaction. It's about building relationships. And I know it's a cliche and everyone says we have to build relationships, but I think in order for us to move it to the next stage in anything, we have to start building on them relationships. So we have to start having that interaction. So it has to be a give and a take. And
okay,
at the
let me
end
jump
of the
in.
day,
Let me just jump in, because you know what? You gave me a really big aha moment. I often, when I'm scrolling and I'm like, okay, I do my best to engage with, especially like, okay, now I've met you and we're connecting a lot. So I'm going to like your stuff. And then I guess as a cheat, I'm going to say in the comments, like I'll do a couple emojis, boom, 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 there you go. And whatever. But that doesn't show that I actually read your post. So when you just said something a minute ago, it's about building relationships and all that other stuff. And I know we hear that all the time, but sometimes you hear something and somebody says it differently. So all of a sudden I realized, like, if I'm going to take 2 seconds to put a couple emojis under a post, I could take 5 seconds and write a comment about something you said above, which is going to have a much more powerful impact, because I'm showing you I read it and I'm starting a dialogue.
And from that, and this is where the social currency comes from
right.
From our point of view is that, okay, so you have now engaged with me. You have now put, a comment in there. You've said whether you like the post or you've given your viewpoint on the post. If it's just to say, I really enjoyed reading this particular post, right? All you have to do there is to start that conversation, is literally to go back and say, what part did you like about this post? What part appealed to you? What did you learn from this? You can start that conversation, because what happens there is if you're reading my post and I turn around and I answer you back, you're going to start going, wow, I got an answer back from Alan. Alan's after starting to talk to me. Wow. So it shows that you care about them as an individual, but you also care about their opinion. Plus, we can also learn so much from these interactions.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing from you, Alan, is I'm hearing something deeper and different. So I get it if somebody likes one of my posts, but that's where I got stuck. I would be chasing numbers thinking, okay, did this make an impact? Because you only got this much interaction, right? And you can't control that. You can only beat yourself up for it. So what I'm hearing from you, what I'm learning from you, which I haven't really given any thought before, and I'm really having a profound moment here, is what I can control is how I interact. And of course, who I interact with, but how I interact. So instead of just glossing over and trying to like 100 posts really quickly, if I made comments and had a meaningful engagement on 10, because it's really about the social, it's really about the relationships. And I made a meaningful comment on your posts, and you're like, it's not a matter of, oh, Chris liked my post. It's like, oh, Chris made a comment. I commented back. We had a conversation. Oh my gosh, that happened to me, Alan. Great, whatever. Now we're having a dialogue, which really is what social media is supposed to be. It's networking, but we're all chasing the numbers. And just for me, anyhow, just how much, going at a higher level instead of getting deeper. So it's better to zone in and have more meaningful interactions than this is the big lesson I'm learning right now
Yeah,
from
and it
you,
is,
this moment.
and
Yeah.
it really is. It's so important. It's so important to have that interaction, because we look at social media like, okay, we can post our content on our websites, we can create our podcasts, we can, we can do our live videos, we can do all this, we can record whatever we want to do. But when we put it out on social media, we're looking for that interaction. We're looking for people to view it and understand it and hopefully learn something from it, but also gain something, gain some knowledge from us and look at us in a different light and say, okay, so I look at Alan Hennessy every time he posts something, because he always shares some interaction. He always shares some posts or some piece of content that is of value to me. Right. So now you're starting to gain that loyalty, but you're also
Mm-hmm.
gaining that advocacy, because what happens is with social currency, if I like Chris's post and I think it's good, I will then reshare that with my
Okay.
community. So you're
Okay.
automatically starting to build out, I call it something, sometimes I call it, and I think it's a great way to put it, is your secret army. They're your
Okay.
secret marketing army,
Okay.
because what they're
Yeah.
doing is they're helping you to get more traction online, which in turn feeds back into what you do. But it's a 50-50 relationship. We have to be
Okay.
sort of keeping an eye on them and making sure that we keep up to date with what's going on there. I'm not saying to you that you have to sit there at a computer and go, okay, I have to check to see what Chris wrote. I have to check what Alan wrote. It's not like that. We will automatically scroll. We
Mm.
live in a world of on demand, and we do it when we want to do it. And that's how it works, because now we're starting to just go, okay, I'm highlighting that the social
Mm.
currency works. It's a
Mm.
piece
Okay.
of marketing that works within your business, and it's a crucial piece of marketing.
If we don't skim over it. Okay. So here's the two big things I've learned from you right now is engagement. For me, what I learned is it could be more purposeful, and it's better to be more purposeful. It's better to have purposeful relationships versus volume. Great. And then another tip is resharing, sort of it gets reciprocal, and they really appreciate when you reshare, and they notice when you do that. So that's another way where I can control, or I don't like the word control, but I have more investment or direction to my social media versus just sitting there hoping people like my post, right?
Mm.
So that's two big ways that I could engage more effectively and sustain these or improve relationships. All right. So what's some other things that you feel we could be doing that we're missing the opportunities on?
With regards to, I suppose there's a lot of different things that you can look at. Let's even say we'll just, for example, we'll take LinkedIn, okay,
Okay.
and we'll look at the types of what we can do on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is about connecting. It's about reaching out, and it's about building relationships. And we all know this. This is what it's a business to business platform, but it gives you the opportunity to get in front of people and to talk to them and that you would not have been able to talk to before. And this goes back to building that social currency, but it also talks about social proofing. So you've got to sort of have some sort of proof that, yes, you are, you're active on the platform. It also, you need all that social proof is like, what are you doing? Because most people, when they will go to LinkedIn, if someone reaches out to them to connect with them, they're going, first thing is they're going to their platform, they're going to their profile to see who they
Mm,
are, what they're about. So that social proof needs to be there. So
mm.
building on that social proof is very important. And once people start seeing that you're sharing people's content, they say, well, this person is starting to, I like this person. He has an interest in what we're talking about here.
Oh, okay. Hold on here. So what you're saying is, that's a different angle of something that when we talk about going to the LinkedIn profile. So my mind automatically thinks that we're going to check out, oh, Alan's history. Alan did this, Alan's company. And what you're saying too, and I do this all the time. You're right. I do this. But I now see the power of this is I will go and look at their posts, what they're doing and what they're commenting on. Right. And see what they're about, because that does tell a lot about them. but I was just doing that, but I didn't understand the power of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really is telling who you kind of what you laugh at or what you think is important or your messaging or the conversations you're having with other people. It really does tell a lot about you.
Yeah. And it also shows that it also gives you an opportunity to home in on particular areas. If you wanted to talk to that person, say, oh, I see you're very interested in whatever it may be. And
Right.
now you have an opportunity. So you're using it also as a research tool. So
Right.
it's about, so from, I suppose, from the solo entrepreneur, the small business owner who's, who would be listening to this type of your program, is that they need to start saying, okay, well, if someone's going to come and look at my profile, I need to have something there that's going to entice them to look at me a little bit further. It's their research. It's research
Mm,
of what we do. We used to years ago, we used to have cold calls. We pick up the phone and say, oh, can I speak to the marketing
mm.
manager? Now we can go on LinkedIn. Now we can go on social and we can find these people and find out what it is that we can connect to. What is it
Yeah,
that will,
I never really thought about that, Alan, of how much it tells your story of who you're talking to, what you're talking about.
mm,
And I know I've checked on people, somebody might refer me to somebody or something, and I look on LinkedIn and then I check their posts and they've got like one post per 2 months. I'm like, okay, they're not like, to me, I
yeah,
feel like they're not taking it seriously, or they're not a viable business because they're hardly, I don't know where they are, but they're not here. And whether that's an appropriate judgment or not, there's not a lot for me. It does give me a snapshot of what they're doing about their business, right? So I didn't really think of that as how
but
telling it is of. So even when now if people see my profile and they go over and see my posts of that I'm resharing stuff or I make meaningful comments versus just here's my annoying emojis that I'll be decreasing on now. Okay, so we're looking at the same thing we've looked at 100 times, but you're making me see it all very differently. Mm,
the other thing about that is, and it's just a point that you touched on, is like where you were saying, oh well, they haven't posted in 2 months on say on LinkedIn. Okay, that may not be their platform of choice. That may
right.
not be. So that could be, it could be Instagram, it could be Twitter. So you automatically get to see, okay, well maybe they're not on LinkedIn, maybe they're more, active on, say, the types of, say, Twitter. Okay,
Mm,
check their check their Twitter feed. You can find this information in their LinkedIn profile, because if you click on the contact us piece on the top of their page, you'll see if they have a Twitter, if they have a Twitter handle, it'll automatically be in there because they'll have put it
mm.
in. So now I go over to Twitter and now I look and say, oh well, look, this guy only posted an hour ago on Twitter. So
Okay.
and he's posted. So you can find out a lot of information and you can follow it. It's like we follow the breadcrumbs. We see
Yeah.
where they are, where they're going, what they're doing. Now you're moving into a Twitter sphere. You're going, okay, well,
Right.
what are they talking about on Twitter? Because they may be talking about something differently on LinkedIn. They may not, like we've had businesses where they've said, can't get the LinkedIn thing, but I love Twitter, or I can't
Right.
get the Twitter thing and I love Instagram. So we're sort of going,
Okay.
okay, well, that's where, and you've got to remember, you've got to also take this into consideration as well, Chris, is if you like where you are. So obviously my big social platform would be LinkedIn and Twitter. They're the two
Okay.
places that I really enjoy working on, and I'm good at them. The reason why I'm good at them is because I enjoy it, and that's the thing. So you've also got to remember, what is it that you enjoy. So if you enjoy Instagram, you're going to spend a lot more time. You're going to be a lot more focused on that. Okay,
Right.
and that is a very important part, because you've got to enjoy it as much as anything else. Social media can't be a, a chore for you to have to do every day. It has to be something that you go, okay, I can find out information. I can use this to, you know, enhance what I'm doing. It can help me to find new customers. It can help me to connect with new people. And it's not a case of where you're selling to them people. It could be a whole range of different opportunities. You could be doing collaborations. You could be going on a podcast. You could be,
Yeah.
there's a huge amount of information that you can find out. And it's a nice way to do it.
I think too, what you're teaching me, which again, I call myself a recovering rushaholic, and you know the nature of my work. It's all about being in execution mode and not rushing, and doing quality work and always creating. But I think still there, I'm in recovery. There's still things that seep in, and so I think what happens is it's like, oh, you hop on and you rush through the social media, and what you're teaching me is okay. So I do think predominantly my audience is on LinkedIn. However, if I'm looking to learn something about maybe a show that I'm going to be on or whatever, you're right. I can follow the breadcrumbs and say, all right, they don't have a big presence on LinkedIn. Let's follow their breadcrumbs. And I just learned all this stuff about them on Twitter, and that's great because I'm going to be on their show, right? So diving a little bit deeper, and all the information is there. And of course, too, in that example I just gave you, if I'm going to now be on Alan's show, and he's not very much on LinkedIn, but I follow you over to Twitter, and now I start commenting, we're going to have a warm up engagement before I'm even on your show. So again, back to the social, instead of going to the high levels, make these more purposeful instead of like, have I done a bunch of things? Have I done my 10 minutes on LinkedIn this morning? Done,
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it really is about networking.
It's something like what you teach is winning that time back. And I always say, any question whenever I'm training with people, I'll always say, what is the first thing you do when you go into the office or you go to your home office? What is the first thing that you do? And they go, I open up my emails. And I go, okay, that's basic. They just basically do that. That's the first thing everyone does, is when they turn on the computer, they check their emails to see what they've missed. Okay. If you spend 10 minutes then after that on social, so whether that be LinkedIn or wherever it is that you want to be, and looking at that and looking at the people that are on it and looking at the content and looking what's in your newsfeed, you're going to come across something that's of real interest to you. Now, you don't necessarily have to say, okay, right, well, I'm going to spend a half an hour here and talk all about this. You can say, okay, I'm going to save that and I'm going to reply to that later on when I have more time. So, you can really work this in to your day as much as you want to. And you're the expert when it comes to that,
I am, but you bring up a really good point, because back in the day, it sounds like dinosaurs roamed the earth like 100 years ago, but it wasn't 10 plus years ago. You'd have to go to a breakfast thing in your area at the Chamber of Commerce. And I found that annoying, having to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and then have a conversational breakfast with someone at 7 o'clock, eating food I didn't want, hoping I got to sit beside someone that I could have an enjoyable business conversation with. Right. So I didn't enjoy the time that stole from me, a good 2 hours there. So yes, we could do more meaningful social media, right? Instead of just being a chore to hop in and out of. I have been awakened. You wait, Alan. I'm going to be all kinds of conversational and charming when you can send my damn emojis.
But it really is. You'd be amazed. And like I give you, for instance, I put out a post. Oh, this is last year sometime. I can't remember. It was last year. But I put out this post and I got this message. I got a comment on the post. And this guy was very, very disgruntled with what I'd said. And he told me in no uncertain terms. So I seen this and I went, okay, now, some people's reaction would be, oh, just delete it and nobody will see it. But I went, no. There's no point in me deleting that, because he could come back tenfold on that. So what I done is I went in and I said, I says, can you tell me exactly what you disagree with within this post? And he came back and I turned and I said, well, that's not the way this post was supposed to be taken. So he says, maybe if you had it taken, if you read it this way and took it in this context, right? He came back and he says, oh, I see your point now. So I says, let's take this offline. The story doesn't end there, because 6 months later, I was actually working with the guy.
See, I'll be honest, I would have deleted it, not because I was afraid somebody would see it. I would have deleted because I think, why, like, if you're just going to start stopping your scroll and frankly bitching at me, that's not a conversation. Like, I would assume, you're not for me. So I would have deleted it by the tone. Like, you don't need to be attacking. You could just say you disagreed with it. But you're right. I have found from a business perspective, when you see somebody complain on Twitter or whatever, it's not the complaint, it's how the company handles it that shows
Yeah.
who they are.
But
And
but it's also to do with understanding. Is
yeah,
this just a troll, or is this,
right.
is this keyboard warrior, or is this actually someone who is actually, disagreeing with your point, which is fine,
Yeah.
because
Which
we
is
all do it
okay.
every day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to have that, it has to have the yin and the yang. If it
Yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't work. But
Yeah.
as I said, it's about understanding that, yes, okay, I think he might have got the wrong end of the stick with this,
Well, you're a
and then
better
being
man than
able
me,
to do
Alan.
that, and it's very, but it actually turned out, and when we
No,
spoke
you're right.
offline, he
Yeah.
said, like, isn't it amazing that that's how we came, and it was
Mm.
just through stopping and thinking and going, okay, but carry on conversations. If someone comments, start that conversation and bring it on. You know what I mean? It's so valuable, so valuable.
Alan, time just flies with you. I can't believe we're done. The time is already gone. You know what? It was really awakening though. A big takeaway for me, because like I said, I was just putting emojis in there, and I should know better, because I'll tell you, she doesn't listen to the show. I'll tell you, my sister, you could send her a text that the world is coming to an end, and she sends you back 2 emojis. So you're like, okay, that doesn't solve that problem. You just get emojis. Like, you have to get on the plane to go visit her, that's fine. But if you try to communicate with her through texting or anything, it's emojis. And it's like, I don't even know what this cat means. I told you I had a real problem, right? So I should know better than to be using that as my default in social media. You are a wise man. Where can people find more of your brilliance, Alan?
Well, you can, if you just type in Alan Hennessy, you'll find me across all of on Google. But I suppose that the website is compassmedia.ie, and reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter are my places. I'm always there. So do reach out and connect with me, and tell me that you heard me on the show here, because I would be delighted to have a chat. So
Yes,
that's
and
how
have
you
a
can find me.
meaningful chat. Don't go throw them an emoji. Have a meaningful chat with Alan.
Yeah.
All right, everyone else, we will see you in the next episode. Thanks again.